Welcome to episode 5 of Land the Plane podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to Land the Plane podcast. My name is Dustin.
I'm Jonathan.
And we are glad to be back with you tonight. It's a cold and rainy night here outside the studio. the recording studio, also known as Jonathan's extra room.
I have no idea.
Can we call it a man cave or anything?
I don't know. It has some Star Wars stuff in it, so maybe it is a man cave.
It does. It's at least a nerd cave.
Nerd cave.
Nerd
That's
cave.
fine. Yeah, I'll take that.
Nerd cave.
It work.
We're just here tonight, ready to record another episode of Land the Plane. And
Actually, we're not ready to record, but we are recording.
we're as ready as we're going to be.
Yeah.
We're not going to get any more ready.
No.
I promise you that.
No.
We got an exciting topic for you tonight. We're both a little nervous about it, so be patient with us as we jump into it. But we really, hopefully, I think you are going to get a lot out of it tonight. But before we get there, Jonathan, I have to ask you a question.
Man, okay, go ahead.
This is not a Would You Rather, if y'all tuned into that last episode of Under the Radar. But this is something, and I'm going to give a plug to another podcast because, I listen to it. So this is where I got the idea from. But it's, if y'all know them, Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning. It's a YouTube channel. They're pretty entertaining guys. They like to eat a lot of stuff.
Those guys are funny.
Yeah. And they do a podcast called Ear Biscuits, and they were answering awkward questions or just questions from their audience. And there's this question brought up, and I never heard it before. Apparently, maybe it's on the internet. I don't know. But a couple was arguing about it, and so they asked Rhett and Link for help solving it. So it really struck me, Jonathan. I wanted to ask you the question to see what you would thought, because you're a pretty critical thinker. You're a very intelligent guy.
Okie dokie.
All right. So a straw.
A straw.
Straw. How many holes does a straw have?
If it works correctly, I'm just gonna say one.
Why? You got to justify it.
Well, because it's something that's solid and it has a hole all the way through it.
So there's not a hole on each end?
No, because if there was a hole on each end, then the middle of it would have to be solid.
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
If there's another hole in it, then it's really problematic to drink through. You ever broken your straw and tried to drink?
Yes. Yes.
You
especially when it's a bendy straw. I get so mad because I'm excited because it bendies.
Bendies.
And then there's all of a sudden it starts squirting out the side. It's not fun.
Yeah, no. Then you have to turn it upside down. Okay.
But if you had a gopher in your backyard and it dug a hole and then it went underneath the ground for 30 feet and then came out of the ground somewhere else, how many holes would there be?
Well, I guess we would incorrectly normally say 2.
So would that be one hole?
I think it's just one hole. No, because the straw, his tunnel would be one hole, but there's 2 holes in the ground.
Well, with a straw, couldn't you say there's 2 holes in the plastic?
No, because you're looking at 2 different objects.
What if you're driving on a road and you come up to a tunnel? How many holes would that have?
I think 1.
So you're
just
in
one long hole through the mountain. What's the definition of a hole?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for this.
That would have to be the.
They were debating it, and then so we got a debate around the kitchen table tonight as we were eating dinner with my kids and stuff. And every time they would answer, I would just look at them, and then they would change their answer because they're like, "We must be wrong."
When you really don't know yourself.
Yeah, because one of the arguments was a hole is the entry point into something. But if you took a 6-inch piece of wood and drilled a hole all the way through it, you wouldn't say it had 2 holes.
No, it's just one.
So what if you can't see the other end?
That makes it feel different.
Does that make it have 2 holes?
No.
Like the gopher tunnel?
I don't think it does. I think we just refer to it that way. Because, if I've got a hole in my shoe, it goes from one side of the shoe into my, if I step on a nail, it goes all the way through my shoe. I would say I've got a hole. Or if I've got a hole in my pants, it's just narrow, so it doesn't seem,
What if
I
you
hope I
can't?
don't have a hole in my pants.
Me too. Me too. What if you can't see the other side? Does that change it?
I don't think it changes it, but it changes the way we talk about it. It's interesting.
It is. So, because I think some would say it has no holes. It's a tunnel. But isn't a tunnel a hole? Like, when would you all of a sudden classify?
Yeah, I mean, if I took
length?
a really big spike, like if I was the size of I don't know what, or like a model train. If I had a model train with a model mountain, and I, like shoved a piece of wood through it to make a big hole in it, it would be a tunnel.
Right, but it'd be one hole.
Yeah, it'd be one hole.
A tunnel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think
That's like a straw.
a hole in a tunnel. I mean, a tunnel is just a hole. I don't think you can separate the two by unit of measurement.
No, it's just one hole.
I think it's straw.
weird.
I think a straw is one hole too.
One hole.
I mean, that's. I'm in the company of one hole.
Now, if you took the straw and pinched it together in the middle so that it became solid, then it would have two holes, but not work.
Yeah, it'd be like just a hole. It would not work. No.
No.
I like taking straws and holding them by the end and winding them up and then popping it and making another hole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fun. And McDonald's straws are superb at that.
It took me a long time to.
They're because they're a little bigger and they're kind of thick. They are the popping straw.
Well, anyway, so that's y'all's homework for tonight. Not just to listen to the rest of the podcast, the real important stuff, but we want you to comment.
Yeah. Is it one hole or two?
2 holes, or just a tunnel?
Okay, it's just I'll go with tunnel. I don't know. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Awesome, man. All right, so Dustin, speaking of holes,
Okay.
do you remember a Bible character that was tossed into a hole?
Yes.
Yeah, there was actually a few
Yes.
that I'm thinking of. Do you remember Joseph?
I do.
You do?
He has an amazing coat.
Yeah. Coat of many colors. All right, so that's actually what we're going to talk about tonight. Is the story, the I hate calling it a story because it sounds like something that you made up or something, but the character.
It's an Old Testament truth.
Yeah, let's stick with story. But no, it's the life story of a dude named Joseph, and I guess we need to do like a really fast synopsis of this guy's story, and then we'll go back and kind of talk about a couple of things. So if you're not familiar with Joseph, basically when he was a kid, his dad liked him better than any of the other brothers, which is awkward for them. But anyway, they did not like him. And after he was kind of an idiot and told them that one day they would bow down and worship him because of a dream that he had, they decided to get rid of him.
Surprise.
They were actually going to kill him. And then they decided, you know what? Let's not kill him because, I mean, that's, it's better to sell him. So we'll make some bank and get rid of the pesky little brat brother.
True businessmen at heart.
Yeah.
Anything for a profit.
There you go. So they sold him into slavery. He went to Egypt, was a slave in the house of a dude named Potiphar. Potiphar's wife liked what he looked like, apparently. And by the way, he was about 17 years old then.
Awkward.
Yeah. So, not sure how old Potiphar's wife was, but he refused to hang out with her, I guess is the way we could put it. And so she had him, she basically accused him of trying to rape her or whatever, and he gets thrown in jail. So now he's sitting in jail, and a couple of other guys get thrown in jail. One is the baker for the king, and one of them is a cup bearer for a king, kind of drinks stuff before he does to make sure it's not poison. Not sure if I want that job. But anyway.
Look good on a resume.
Yeah, but if you get another job, that means you're probably dead. Okay, so Joseph, while they were there, he interpreted a couple of dreams for them, and the baker ended up dying, but the cupbearer was brought back to the king. few more years go by, and the king has a dream. The cupbearer remembers, oh, hey, this dude named Joseph interpreted my dream one time. Maybe he can do the same. So Joseph interpreted the dream for Pharaoh, and he ended up being kind of second in command of all of Egypt after that. Up until that point, he had spent from about 17 years old until 30, either as a slave or in prison. So 13 years he had spent either as a slave or in prison before he finally became like second in charge in all of Egypt. So, and then it's really cool about his brothers coming back, and he kind of messes with them quite a bit, but ends up forgiving them and those kind of things. But I want to pause right there, and that's kind of where we're going to be talking about, because we try to kind of keep this real, and that's actually one really cool thing about the Bible is if I was trying to sell Christianity as a religion, and I was going to be kind of in charge of writing the Bible, I'd probably leave a lot of the stuff out that's in there.
Yeah, there's some things that exactly not a lot of people probably want to hear. You know, there's some challenging stuff, some stuff that wouldn't set too well if you're wanting to live a for yourself lifestyle or anything,
Yeah, follow God and be like Joseph, so you can spend 13 years of your life in prison. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a good selling point.
Isn't that how every young? Well, you like to spend your young adult years? Yeah. Slave in prison?
Yeah, my daughter's 17, about to graduate high school, not thinking she wants to spend the next 13 years in prison.
Probably not.
No,
probably not.
But that, like I said, that's kind of the cool thing about the Bible is that it's real. I mean, it really is. It's real stuff. So, but what I want to kind of focus on, because I've been reading through Genesis and Exodus here lately, and the story of Joseph has always been interesting to me. And a little shout out to my dad. It's like his favorite. Joseph is one of his favorite characters in the Bible. So I really want to look at just kind of this whole story about Joseph, and especially at the end of his towards the end of this story, we see Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. And if you don't remember, Joseph, part of the whole deal here was that he had a plan for getting through a famine that was coming to Egypt. And he tells his brothers, this is in chapter 45 of Genesis, it says, and now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. And then it goes on to say in the couple of verses later, and God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it says that God sent Joseph there. So that kind of begs the question, Dustin. Mm-hmm. Did God cause or kind of make his brothers sell him into slavery so that he would end up in Egypt and kind of be put into a position to save all these people from this famine?
It's a tough question.
What? Why? Why is that a tough question? Well,
it's tough because we know the end result, and we know that great things came about from it, and I can sit here and tell you that, when you go through hard times in your life, there's something to be learned, or there's something at the end that God's going to use. But the question really is, like you're saying, is at the beginning of it when something bad happens, was it God's intention to put Joseph in jail or slavery for 13 years? That doesn't sound like something God would do, like the loving God that people will tell me about. That doesn't sound like something I would want him to do to me. I don't want to go to jail for 13 years. Because
in some ways we could look at that and say, oh, well, it was like God's will for them to pretty much hate their brother, sell him, and then he gets into Egypt, and all that he goes through there, that all of that evil that happened to him was God's will.
Yeah, which seems a little out there, because I mean, God tells us to love one another, not hate each other. God tells us to be kind. I mean, you can go through a whole list.
Yeah.
And his brothers did exactly the opposite of that. So is that something that God would prompt them to do? Like, hey,
Right.
guys, like a little meeting. Hey, guys, I want you all to go get Joseph and throw him in a hole. All this kind of stuff. It just doesn't seem like something God would want them to do, But yet,
Right.
at the end,
Yeah, I mean, and because we do have Joseph standing there saying, God sent me here.
right.
Right. So this is, and I guess what's so tough about this is that the beginning of kind of this story, the beginning action that pushed Joseph into Egypt was a sinful action.
Right. Yeah.
So did God cause that sinful action? Because I think we can, man alive, somebody out there may have a family member or something that was hit by a drunk driver, and that has changed the course of their life, for them personally. So they may, did God cause that person to get drunk that night so that they would hit them to, somehow, make their life better if it is better or whatever, or even worse, I mean, where do we go with this kind of big question of, and I know there's this big word that evangelicals and theologians like to throw around, the sovereignty of God, which means basically that God is in control of everything. So let's try to figure that out in the next 15 minutes.
It's going to be exciting 15 minutes. No, I mean, I think about it and I think about what, how that started. And it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where God would be so desperate to have something done that he would cause his creation to sin, the one thing that he just despises totally. I don't believe God would be that desperate to where he would need one of his creations to sin and to do something the least thing he wants us to do is sin. Why would he call upon his creation to do that to get something done? It just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't seem like that seems like there's nothing else to do, so I have to do this. And the God I believe in, worship, he's more powerful than that. If he's the one that created all this and leads all this, then I can't think of a scenario where he would go back. It's like Cain and Abel. Did he tell Cain, I want you to go ahead and kill Abel? I mean, is that something he wanted him to do?
Yeah. Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
And even though something great came out of the end result, that there was sin there that happened, and then God transformed it, I guess.
Yeah. And I think we can put the kind of the question about did God cause them to sin to rest by looking at James. One thing about the Bible is if you're ever confused about the Bible, see if the Bible talks about that topic again, because the Bible is its own best interpreter, And we see in James chapter 1 that he basically says, don't if you're tempted, don't ever say that you're being tempted by God. It says, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. So that whole idea that, well, this bad thing happened because of sin, but we see that it turns out really good in the end, so it must be God's will. We can't say that. I don't believe that we can say that God caused that sin or tempted anyone to do that. So, if that's the case, what can we say? And you sort of started going there just a minute ago.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think to think about the drunk driving incident you referenced, an example a minute ago. No way, shape, or form do I believe that God put the drink in the person's hands and told him to keep drinking, get in the car, make that decision, go drive down the road. This is the place where you want to pull, across the lanes, hit them head on, kill whoever. I don't think that was what God wanted to happen, Did he know it was going to happen? Sure, probably, I guess, when you think about it that way. But in this, even if these wonderful things come out of it, even if the guy who was drinking and driving becomes to the Lord and finds Jesus, or whatever he does with the rest of his life, or the family of, somebody that might get hurt, God can use that part for great things. But I guess to me, it's a transformation of their sin in this world that he never wanted here. He didn't desire to be here, but he's taking it, and he's taking what happens from it, and he acts in a mighty way in those situations, and he ends up getting the glory for the results of what can happen, I guess.
Yeah. Could you say that he takes those things and gives them value?
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Value.
And that would be the word. We hear this word a lot when it, concerning God redeems, that God redeems things. And that word simply means to give something value. You got a coupon by itself isn't worth anything. But if you take it and you redeem it, then they may give you like a Chick-fil-A biscuit for it, which would be awesome.
That's good.
So anyway, that's a good redemption right there. So that whole redeeming something, giving it value, I think that's where we see God step into the things. There is sin. There are bad things that happen. There are terrible things that happen because we're on planet Earth. But we can see that God can take those things, redeem them, and give them value. And they may even be things that we can't understand how we might be able to get on the other end of this. Like I was trying to figure out why in the world, like if it was God's ultimate goal to have Joseph in Egypt to kind of save that remnant of Israel, his family moved down there, all that kind of thing. If it was God's plan for them to be there and Joseph needed to get there, like how in the world would he get him there outside of his brother selling him, all those kind of things? I don't know. But I think it would have happened. He would have gotten there somehow. He didn't need someone to sin to get him there, And in our situations, whatever we're in, because, let's face it, we're all in situations, we're all going through things that we maybe don't understand, whether it's temporary, long-term, whatever. We all may be going through things that we don't understand, and we all may feel like it was sin, either on our part or on somebody else's part, that got us into those situations. Sometimes, not all the time, but, I think we got to process those things kind of the same way. That God didn't force somebody or cause someone to sin to cause this situation, but sin may have caused it, but he's taken it and he can redeem it.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think about, especially from the viewpoint of, I am I don't know if victim's the right word. I hesitate to use that word, but I'm like the victim of somebody else's sin. Like sometimes I think we get caught up because I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. I don't feel like, and Joseph, it wasn't really his sin. He probably has some issues. He was a human. He sinned at times, but it wasn't his actions that put him in the hole, put him in prison, put him in jail as a slave and all these things. It wasn't his actions necessarily. It was the actions of others where they committed the sin and did it to him. And I think, if I'm thinking in today's world, real life, I'm thinking that's a harder concept to handle, because it's like, well, I've been doing good. First of all, God doesn't reward us for how good we are. Okay.
Right.
As far as I get to check off all my boxes this week. Don't mishear me here. But when we're in a situation and something is done to us that was out of our control, then we tend to, I think, take that a little bit harder and sometimes justify why we're in that situation. Oh, it must automatically be something God wants me to go through or God wants me to deal with, that he caused all this to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think he does, but he's there. He understood what happened, and he's there to walk out of it with you, to redeem you, to give you back that value, whether or not it was your sin or somebody else's sin to you.
Right. Yep. And I think that is sometimes it's almost sometimes like a harder pill to swallow. Like if I do something moronic and I'm paying for it, I'm like, okay, I was dumb and now I'm having to, pay for that.
If it's
somehow.
icy outside and you walk across the pavement and you take that chance and you fall down, you ain't got nobody to blame but yourself.
Nobody to blame, and I'm good with that. And I don't automatically start thinking, well, why did God make me fall down? No, I'm dumb.
You just fell down.
I just fell down.
Now, God might send somebody to help pick you up.
Yeah.
That's
always
an
a good
ambulance.
thing. An ambulance. But in those instances where, we're kind of chugging along and we feel like others do something to us or something happens that's out, like you said, out of our control, then I think we do start looking at, okay, is this God doing, getting my attention? Is this God putting me through something? Is there something that I need to, and I think those are actually I think they're good questions that we need to answer, but we can't dwell on.
Right.
Sometimes we're just in the middle of situations because we're in the middle of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does our response need to be? Like, what do we need to be doing when we find ourselves in those situations? Because no matter, if we believe that it was God that's doing it, if he's bringing a trial to us to help us, if it's somebody else just being jerks, whatever, what do we need to do in the middle of that?
It's probably not focus on the beginning of it. Like you just said, we get caught up and I want to know why this is happening to me. I mean, I've been there. I've gone through that in my life. Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? Why am I facing this? Why am I dealing with this? And trust me, I know there's things out there that I don't want to deal with, that friends of mine have dealt with, that people I love have dealt with. And there's definitely things I don't want to. But, we all have our own plate, and we all go through this thing called life, and we all have people do bad stuff to us. And when I think about that, you're right, don't get caught up in the why, but what do we do? And I think, to me, the first step is just stop for a second, kind of stop, regroup a little bit, get refocused, get re-energized, and remember some of the promises. This is what I have to do. Remember some of the promises that God's given us, that he's not abandoning us, he's not leaving us, but he is there, and he will redeem, and he can take any situation and make it better than anything we ever imagined. Because if he's in control, what am I worried about? Of course, I worry all the time, but don't hold that against me.
So what if we changed our perspective a little bit to, instead of asking why we're in the situation, which is like what you said, looking back at the beginning of it, what if we looked forward and said, what's in store? Like, what's in store for me?
Yeah. What do you want me to do with this?
What's going to be the end result of this?
Right.
Now, I think though we got to look at Joseph. I mean, we're talking about Joseph, so let's look at Joseph. During that time, like he was a slave in Potiphar's house, and then he was, in prison, which I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it was a lot worse than prison is today.
Most likely.
Yeah. So,
no air conditioning.
So do we have information about what Joseph was doing then, during those times? Yes, we do.
I'm trying to sit here and think of some specifics. But
yeah. Well, I mean, just the fact that we see that Potiphar basically placed everything in his house under Joseph's control.
Right.
And I mean, he was second in charge of his household. The only thing, in fact, I think Joseph tells Potiphar's wife, the only thing that he has withheld from me is you. I mean, he was big deal. Mm-hmm. And then when he was in prison, we see that basically the jailers kind of did the same thing. They put things in under his control. And it says that the jailers were there. They didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Because Joseph took care of it all. I don't think that's normally the reaction that we have.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think when we're in cruddy situations, we tend to, instead of, looking at what's in store and how can I be, faithful through this, how can I still do what's right, how can I, persevere, I think we kind of get more into the woe is me, attitude. And, we get bitter. We end up trying to blame. We end up trying to do all kinds of things to try to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
But we see that Joseph was in the situation, and instead of just sitting there in prison and being a jerk prisoner, I mean, obviously he was a model prisoner, because he ended up kind of being in charge of all the other prisoners and all those kind of things. So he was in that situation, but he didn't lose his faith, I don't think, and he didn't lose his character,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great point. And I can think of it too, because I was sitting here, I'm contemplating that whole it's my sin versus somebody else's sin stuff, and which one is it, and how do I respond, and is it different? And it's different. I mean, you're going to have different responses to each of it. But I also think about, when people are going through something, even if it's their choice or it's not their choice, that they don't believe they can get out of it, or this sin is too big, or the sin is too dark. And thinking about that situation is like he was put in this horrible situation, and he responded it by living the way he was supposed to, like continuing to work hard to live the way he was supposed to. Did he probably make some more mistakes here and there? Of course he did. Did not probably ever make every decision right? Probably not. But what he did was, at that difficult time, as you're saying, he dedicated himself to living out the truth instead of just woe is me. But sometimes we get in that woe is me, and we don't know how to get out of it. I mean, I've had difficult times where you don't know how to climb out of it. You don't know how to do your best each and every day because you do feel so overwhelmed, and that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, and I think that's when we have to bring some others into our struggle. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that we have to have some other people to pull alongside of us, and even if it's nothing more than just having somebody there that we can talk to and kind of share what we're really feeling. Sometimes that's what we need, just to unload, So I think what we've kind of looked at a little bit is that Joseph, I think he kept his faith, I think he kept, I think he kept looking toward the future, instead of getting stuck where he was, and I think he kept obeying. He was obedient to those in charge of him, earthly, but then the only reason is because he was being obedient to God. So I think that's where we need to be. Like you said, looking forward, see what God's got in store. That's faith. Right. Without faith, we're not going to look forward, and then keep obeying. Where do I need to obey you in this? Well, I'm going to go around and tell people about that. Blah, blah, blah. No, that's not obedience. Trying to, slander someone else to save face for you. That's not obedience. Whatever it might be, there's going to be some disobedience, some areas of disobedience there that we got to say no to.
Sure,
and then keep on obeying. And I really think that's what I've really seen, in this current look at Joseph is that whole keeping the faith and obeying, and seeing what God's got in store for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because no matter what you've done in the past, your sin or what may have been done to you in the past from somebody else's sin or actions, no matter what, there is absolutely nothing, unless you've invented a time machine, which would just cause all kind of problems. I don't like when movies use time machines, Jonathan. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's my sci-fi nerd coming out of me. But unless you you cannot. There's no way to go back in time, and there's no way to change what's happened in the past. It's done. It's over. Now, can you go ask for forgiveness for somebody or go apologize to somebody? Yes, you can work on fixing a relationship, but there's no way you can change the actions that were done.
Yeah.
So all you can do is look to what's ahead and look to see how God wants to use that, and how God, he knows what you're going through. He knows what happened to you. He's very aware, and he wants to lead you somewhere else. Use the word redeemed. He wants to redeem you, remind you that you have value, because that value has a purpose. Not just for you to live a happy-go-lucky life the rest of your days, but he has a purpose for you to go and do something for his kingdom, for him. It may be second in command in Egypt. It may be just to lead your family. It may be to rebound from a disaster. It may be starting over. It may be getting off an addiction. Whatever it is, I don't know. But he's got something for you to do. I mean, forget the past. Your sin is not bigger than God is.
Yeah.
If he can overcome it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. And I think this kind of brings us to the last part of Genesis 50:20. Says, as for you, this is Joseph talking to his brothers, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. And with that, I think it's time to land this plane.
Well, land it, John.
Land it. All right, so does God cause evil? No. Does God use, or can God use evil? Yeah, I think he can. I believe he does. He can redeem it. In other words, give it value. But, no matter what, we've got to be faithful when we find ourselves in those kind of issues, and we've got to be obedient. We've got to be still obedient to what God has for us. So, guys, what is that you're going through that maybe doesn't seem fair, maybe causes you to question God, maybe even makes you feel like quitting? How is God calling you to be faithful in that situation? I know it's way easier said than done, but he can give you the strength to go through it. And remember, don't go through it alone. Like we've said on previous shows, you've got to invite someone else into your struggle to help you. So, guys, I hope this in some way was helpful for you. Veston, do we have any airmail?
Airmail. Special effects. Yeah, hey, what we want to talk about airmail this week is the last few weeks have just been fun. On Facebook especially, we ran a little contest promotion out there to just encourage people to join in on the conversation and share the page. We ain't gonna lie. We're wanting this podcast to grow. We love the fact that we have as many listeners as we do already, but we want this thing to grow because we want these messages. We really want to get this out for God's glory and get these messages out, because there's people in your life right now that are struggling and they need to hear these messages. And so that's why we're doing these things, is because we want y'all to help us get that message out there and get people listening. So anyway, on the Land the Plane Facebook page, Land the Plane today, we had a contest where we gave away a gift card of the choosing. If you shared and all that kind of stuff, I don't remember what we had people do, but we did have a winner. We announced it on the page, but we wanted to say something here too on the podcast. But that winner was Benita Weisler. That's how you say her name. Weisler. I know for a fact because that used to be my wife's last name. So she is family. We didn't disqualify family. We're too small of a group to disqualify family yet. But congratulations, Benita. Your gift card is on the way. Hopefully you'll be getting it pretty soon, if not already by the time you listen to this.
Now, what were the results of the polls that we?
The results of the Would You Rather polls.
Would You Rather polls.
Yeah, we had some fun with that. I can tell you. I'll just go over them real quick and read a couple comments. But the one where we asked, would you rather go bald or always have bad haircuts? That thing ended 50-50. 50-50. Yeah, so I was just impressed by that. And then we asked the one, would you rather in the middle of the night have to run from a hungry bear or a terrifying clown? That one most people wanted to run from a terrifying clown, 73%, which, my thought was the bear just might be hungry. He might eat a possum on the way or something. I don't know. But Jerry shared on here, a bear charged me on my motorcycle. It was scary. Clowns are horrible, but I could take one in a fight. It depends on how bad the clown is. Amy said, if I'm that scared, I'm not running anyway. My legs would betray me, falling all over the place. So I'll just be scared of a clown versus eaten by the bear. And Rodney said, from a hungry bear, because if I got away, I would win. If I didn't get away, we both would win. He would be full, and I would be home. Talking about heaven, I guess. And then we had the one where we asked if your boss comes in and tells you you have an exciting new project. Actually, 60% said yes, 40% said no. And then we had the last one, which was kind of just a really silly one. I said, would you rather pass gas once every time you have a serious conversation or have to burp during every kiss? Pass gas won 71%, 29%. And Lisa out there commented, she voted pass gas, I guess, because she said, as long as it is silent, because I can burp better than a man. Oh. And I'm telling you, I know Lisa, and that's a fact. That's a fact. So we had a lot of fun out on the social media websites this last week, and just enjoyed getting involved with y'all through that process. Let's do some more, when we post these podcasts up, when we put the link out there, join in on the conversation. Start commenting. Let us know what you think about the topic that day. Challenge us with some questions and stuff. It's our Facebook page. Jonathan, you're better at our websites than I am. I know Facebook is Land the Plane Today. Join us there. We have a Twitter feed that is 24.
Land the Plane 247.
I don't know why.
I love to start with Land the Plane. Land the Plane 247 for Twitter. Instagram is Land the Plane Today. Facebook is Land the Plane Today. And our website is landtheplane.today.
See, John, you're so good at that. You can also email us if you'd like. If you want to send us a private question. Yeah. And that is at landtheplanetoday@gmail.com. So if you want to send us a question or even a show topic, hey, if you want to talk about something, we're willing to listen. So,
even if you want to be a guest, be a guest? You got a show topic and a guest? Come on, bring it.
We have another microphone.
We may tell you no, but come on.
Yeah, so join in with us. It's a lot of fun. And this is stuff we need to talk about, not having it ourselves. But we got to go. This show is over, Jonathan.
All right, let's hit the stop button. See you guys.
All right, bye.